days. Tuesday, Wednesday, happy days. Thursday, Friday, happy days. The weekend comes, my cycle hums. Thank you, thanks to you. Taking over for the 99 in the 2000s. These days are these days are like gray sky, hello blue. Something can hold me when I hold you. So right, you can't be wrong. Rocking and rolling all week long. These days are these days are What's up, everybody? This is your man, Dr. John C. Turner, aka the Professor JT, aka Dr. JT, baby. And I am excited to be here with the Doc Chat Daily. We are here and we have some great things to talk about on today because we're continuing our great streak of great episodes this week. And this particular one, indeed, is going to be something special because we're talking about how to get a job as a doctor, something that really frustrates, upsets, and gets people bent out of shape so much. But we got to talk about it. If you missed yesterday, what an incredible episode with the amazing Sarah Jane, as she gave great insights on how to be a professor. And that's what really led into this conversation for today about how to just get a job. People are struggling as doctors to get jobs so much. And it's really getting to a point to where people are like, what did I get a doctorate degree for? Should I go for a doctorate degree? It's understandable. Absolutely understandable because it is one of those things to where people think once they get their doctorate degree, it's just going to open up the windows of heaven for them. It's just going to open up doors for them, as it should. But the thing is, not only does your experience have to play a part, a lot of times it's about who you know that's going to play a part. So, a little bit about my backstory being in higher education and also nonprofit education for many, many years. And the big thing with me was I had great experience. I just needed the icing on the cake, which was the PhD, the doctorate degree. And so once I got that, then the doors for me started open. One, because I had the experience. And that was a huge thing too. Plus, another thing I want people to realize, you have to know how to sell yourself. One of my mentors, Dr. Daryl Kane, shout out to him, told me that. And that really blessed me more than anything. You have to be able to sell yourself, especially in this job market. How does the job you want and how does it be able to look at you, all your education, all your experience, everything you did, and say, that's the person we want for this role? That's the most important thing that we need to be focused on today because it's all about getting the job that you want and that career that you want. I mean, we have to be honest, people aren't doing 30 years in a job anymore, not even 20 years. You'll be really great if you could do 10 years in the same one job in this day and age. But another mentor that said, especially in higher ed, you might have to do a 3 to 5 year plan. 3 years, you do your thing, but about that fifth year, and in between 3 to 5 years, you better start looking, and you probably better be out of there if you want to keep rising up. And those are the things that people don't tell us a lot of times because we just think we're going to get these doctorate degrees, we're going to get a job, boom, we're set for life. It just doesn't happen that way. And then not only do we need to be praying for the job that we want compensation wise, but we need to be praying for the job we want mental health wise. And we have a great mental health panel coming up 8 p.m. tonight. Make sure you check that out on the Doc Chat. And the mental piece, I think, is really getting people because what's the saying? Say people don't leave jobs because they don't like the job. They leave job because what? Managers, people, supervisors, all those different types of things. So how do you get all this to line up? That's the most important thing that we want people to try to get together, especially if you're going for a doctorate degree. Realize it might take a little bit. You might have a job, like the job, but you're not really gelling with the staff or the supervisor. But then, you love your supervisor, but the job ain't paying enough. It's just not nothing that you feel like long term can help you. So that's where we want to make sure we take the conversation today. So if you're checking us out, make sure you hit us up in the comments. We had great commenters yesterday, great folks checking us out. If you're a doctor just looking for a job, I just need a job. This is the show you need to check out. And we are live on the Professor JT YouTube, TikTok page, and also live on Dr. John C. Turner LinkedIn. All right. So where do we start? Well, the big thing I want people to look at where to start in looking at a doctorate degree and then looking at a job is how does your job, career, whatever your dream is, how does it line up with what you're doing as far as getting a doctorate degree and complete your doctorate degree? That's the big thing because that's part of selling yourself. What you do, what the experience you bring has to line up with that job. If I don't tell you anything else, the thing that frustrates people the most is one thing, and it is how does my doctorate degree connect with these jobs that are out here? That's where the selling yourself comes in, and that's where people mess up. So, take for instance myself. Not only do I have a PhD in urban education studies, but I have a master's degree, student affairs, higher education. And so for me, it's always looking at, oh, those are very broad degrees, but I have niches. I have first year experience. That is one of my niches. Post secondary success. That's one of my niches. Also working with students of color, working with underserved, underrepresented populations. So those are my niches. Those are my bread and butter aspects that help me get jobs because I can do those jobs better than anybody else. I already know that. Then how do you connect that even more? So now you're talking about working with different departments, whether in higher education, working with admissions, working with your leadership presidents, chancellors, vice presidents, working with your advising departments, working with your student affairs department. Be honest with you, I'm not the biggest on all the faculty stuff. That's not my jam, but I am a faculty member, so I can do that. But I know that student affairs line, I can rock that line. I can rock. That's what I've done, and that's what I love to do. That's a big thing too. Your passion. What are you passionate about? That's a big, big thing. I want people to realize. If you can get into a job that's paying over $100,000 that you're passionate about, you're winning. I mean, you are winning. And that's just the goal. That's the goal we all have, especially when we get these doctorate degrees. We want to be able to get in something that we're passionate about, that we love, and that we care about so much. And so let's go ahead and take a look at good platforms to find these $100,000 plus jobs. I think we had a great conversation on yesterday, and I had a phenomenal, phenomenal doctor and Dr. Mongino who gave these great, great websites to be able to check out jobs. So let's go ahead and pull this up here. All right. All right. So her recommendations here, and they're great recommendations indeed. All right. All right. So what does she recommend? Higher ed jobs, phenomenal website. I found phenomenal jobs on this was $100,000 jobs, especially if you are looking at faculty administration, executive roles, and they cater to every city and state. I think that's what makes it really great. Also, you can find online opportunities on this website as well. I think that's a huge, huge thing because a lot of people miss out on that aspect. The fact that they don't realize that yes, you could search for online jobs as well, which is really, really important. So you could look for online jobs on this particular website, Higher Ed Jobs. I've looked for jobs on there for many, many years. and they've always come through with some great positions based on what I do that I apply for and know I can get those jobs. All right. And so some of these other ones I'm not as familiar with, but I appreciate her posting those because I've honestly never heard of some of these before. They're just really, really good. So her jobs, and you see all these descriptions. You had higher ed posts, all higher ed job online, higher ed hiring, higher ed spot, higher ed worldwide, science and higher ed. So the thing is with your doctor degree, there's specific as far as probably websites where people from your background go to look for jobs if you're looking for jobs online. Now, something to never not ever when you're looking at jobs, especially as a doctor, a lot of times it's about who you know, especially in this job market. Who knows you? Who knows you and your work? The last job I got working at a university, literally the only reason I probably got that job or at least stood out to get that job was because somebody knew me. They knew the work I did. They saw the work I did on LinkedIn and saw the post that I put up, saw all the connections I had as far as helping people in education. Boom, they brought me in for a job, and I don't want anybody to ever not knowing somebody. And I'm not going to lie. I am a black man. He was a white guy that said, man, can you come over and do this job? Sometimes your own people won't even help you out. But that's okay. Know that your work stands out. Know that nobody can do the work better than you. So that's really, really important. And so a lot of times who you know, who can write you great letters of recommendation, all those different things play a huge role in getting a job. And I want people to always remember that. All right. And so as we're looking at these particular websites, let's go to one. Let's do a search. Let's see how this works out. All right. All right. So this is Higher Ed Jobs website. All right. So as we see here, they have categories: administration, faculty, executive. So something I like to do personally is just go for the city search. That's always my big bread and butter. So I'm in Indianapolis. So as you see, I can pull up whole state of Indiana, or I could pull up metro areas, Indianapolis, Indiana, or I could pull up institutions around the state of Indiana, which is good. If I click on Indianapolis, Indiana, and so you'll be able to see not only the jobs that they have, but they do a great job of putting the latest jobs. So some of these jobs you see were posted today, which is really, really good. And so then a lot of times they'll post the salary, a lot of these jobs. Sometimes they'll post them right here on the post. Sometimes you'll have to go into the post. Just depends on what it is. And so searching through the website, you'll kind of see what they have available. You'll see if it's something that clicks with you, and you'll go from there. Now, there's certain areas I like to always look in because I love certain areas. I was in the East Coast for a while, would love to get back out there. And so I love looking at Washington, D.C., see what they have out there. Okay. And so, cool thing about this website, too, if it's something they need bad, here's a priority job: Director of Data Policy, Institutional Research. And this is an association, not necessarily a university or college, but they put associations up here too, which is good. And as you can see the salary right there. So that's how you can find some good $100,000 jobs by looking at these websites. And a lot of times it depends on the area. Now, the $100,000 probably out in Washington, D.C. ain't going to hit the same as $100,000 in Indianapolis, Indiana. You have to be able to gauge that too. But sometimes it's just getting your foot in the door. You might end up taking a job. It's not the money that you want, but it's in the area that you want. That's a big deal, So you have to be able to see and gauge what works for you, what's best for you, and how you're going to make sure you live. I have a friend of mine, and she is gung ho on wherever I get a job, it's got to be 80 grand or plus. Well, she works in a certain field in events. That might not happen, especially depending on where she wants to be, because you usually are paying for your area. They're usually going around the market value for that job all over the country. They're going to usually give you a market value. That's something to keep in mind. So you'll be like, why is this job so low for that area? But if I look over in another area, it's $20,000 higher. They're paying for the area. They're giving you salary per area. And so these are things that I want people to realize when it comes to looking for jobs. There's a lot of different pieces that come into looking for jobs that sometimes, especially if people would get doctor degrees, they're not the most aware of. All right. So one of my favorite higher ed jobs, great place to find jobs, especially because they put that salary there. Now, something else I wanted to make sure I showed too, like I said before, also you put online remote in there, they give you online remote jobs, which is really good because now you're looking at the fact of, oh, wow, I don't even have to leave my city. I don't even have to move. I could possibly find a job and do it there. So, like this ethics and advocacy and education, I ain't gonna lie, I might apply for that myself. That's a good job. So, those opportunities are really, really good. So, you want to look at those opportunities and see there. Online adjunct faculty jobs. I'm an online adjunct faculty member, University of Maryland Global Campus. Those opportunities are golden. Getting paid for an 8-week class, like you see this Southern New Hampshire, 2,200, 2,500 per course. You might only teach 8 weeks, but you do enough of those throughout the year, maybe 5 or 6. That's a nice little extra piece of change. So there's great adjunct jobs out here. This career advisor job is good. Hey, it's online. Wouldn't have to go anywhere. So these are things I want people to start to look at when it's opportunities, not just I got to be at that campus or I got to be at that location, but I can go and get an online job and be just fine. And one more thing I want to show from this website that's really, really important is the faculty role. Now, the faculty is really, really awesome because they break it all the way down per degree area, per subject matter area. And that's what's really, really exciting because you don't have to go through all these different, what do you do? So myself, I'm more higher education. So click on education, higher education. Boom, I see some faculty roles in those areas where I can look for, where I can apply for. That's really, really important. Some of these are in person. Some of these are probably online roles, but this is a great way to get some extra money as well on top of you getting your job, 100,000, 100 grand, somewhere around there. Now, here's the thing too. You might want to make $100,000, but it doesn't have to just be from one job. And when I hit my $100,000, I was working a job and teaching adjunct. So in total, that ended up being over $100,000 for me in a year. That was a great thing. And so that's what I want people to start to look at is I could put together teaching online, teaching in person, working online, working in person. That's how I can hit my mark of $100,000. I want people to look at those different types of things. All right. All right. Another one that's really good inside higher ed. Can't beat this. Same thing. Faculty jobs, administrative jobs, executive administrative jobs, which is really big because a lot of times people just want to be in leadership. This is opportunities to get in leadership. Presidents, chancellors, provosts, deans, and realize there's level to those. Assistant dean, associate dean, vice provost, vice president. This is really, really big because people wonder how do I get into these opportunities where they're out there? And does your experience line up to where out there is? Now, the thing too, you got to work your way up the total pole. You can't say I got a doctorate degree, I automatically want to make 100,000. I'm going to be a dean. Well, it doesn't work that way. You're going to have to work your way up the pole, the totem pole. And so you might have to do assistant director role, then become a director, then executive director. Then you might be able to become an assistant dean, associate dean, dean. Work your way up through the roles. There's not a lot of jumping now. I'm not gonna lie. I've seen it happen before, but majority of the time you got to work your way up through the roles. Okay, so that's how you get to the provost position, those vice president's positions. A lot of times you had to be sitting in director seats or associate director seats for a little while before you can work your way up to those executive level roles, which is really, really big. And then I love this too because they have jobs outside of higher education. I myself, I worked at a nonprofit. Shout out Center for Leadership Development, give me opportunity. And I was working in education. I was a college success coordinator. Those are opportunities too that can lead to some good paying jobs. Because a lot of times your nonprofit associations and all those organizations, they can pay you some good money too. So those are opportunities to make $100,000. A lot of people think, oh, because of a doctorate degree, they just think I want to be a professor. No, that's not the case. You can go and get a job at a nonprofit organization, or you could be a consultant, which is great opportunities out there, folks, that you could look at. And I want folks to be able to know you can look at those opportunities and they can open up a lot of doors for you. Okay. And so, something I want to make sure too that people understand when you're looking at these jobs is your documentation has to be on point. It has to be phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. You cannot have horrible documentation sending to jobs and then you're frustrated you can't get a job. Plus, the background you have has to line up with these jobs, especially in this market. You just can't say, man, I want to go get a job and you're just applying willy nilly. I mean, I understand the market is bad right now. It is really, really horrible. But you can't be a doctor applying to over 200, 300, 400 jobs. What you do doesn't line up with these jobs. You're hoping, wishing, praying. You're throwing stuff out there. You're throwing a line like in fishing and hoping you catch something. That's not how you get a job when you're a doctor. When you get a job as a doctor, your documentation has to be on point. Has to be on point. Cover letter, one page, no more than one page. And it has to be phenomenal, explaining what you do, how you did it, qualitative, quantitative information on that document. It has to be phenomenal. If you do cover letters or need a cover letter reviewed or done, please send it to me. I can look at it. We can chop it up. We can start to talk. Big thing. Resume, CV has to be on point. I am blessed. I had a great lady who worked HR in the federal government, paid her nice. I think $125, $135 to do my entire CV resume over. Every time I send it out, it gets looked at. People are like, this is phenomenal. This is a phenomenal resume. Don't be afraid to pay money to get your resume. That's how it gets looked at. If you knew how many applications were going out every single year to these jobs, you'll be shocked. I know folks that work in HR that put up one job and they can get over 1,000 applications. Yours has to stand out. So your CV resume has to be on point. If you're a doctor, it has to be on point. And I could look at that as well if anybody needs help looking at your resume, looking at your CV. Also, there's other documentation a lot of times when you're applying a job has to be on point. You have to look at having a teaching philosophy statement. Even if it's a job that you won't be teaching in, a lot of times they want to know how are you coming into this job and what is your approach to teaching to be able for you to do that job. Also, you might have to do a diversity statement. That is a huge thing. What is your take on diversity? How do you go about honoring and respecting everybody when it comes to being at that institution, organization, campus, whatever? That's a big thing. And the final thing is looking at your letters of recommendation. You got to have 4 or 5 people and also your recommenders or people that they're going to call if you end up getting a job. They got to be able to speak volumes about who you are and what you do because that is a huge, huge thing. Remember a lady, master's degree in social work, had the background. She had 3 reference calls. 2 of the people knocked it out the park. Knocked it out the park. One person, they talked about her bad, and she did not get that job because that one person talked about her bad. And I was even asked, I was like, "Well, wouldn't you know this person would give you a bad recommendation?" She said, "I didn't know." And so you have to have good recommendations for a job. People that will take the time to write you a letter and get letters in on time before deadlines, because there's people that miss out on great jobs because they will sit here, turn in documents late. That's a bad look. if your people can't get in letters and everything on time. That's a bad, bad look. Okay. So cover letter has to be on point, one page. CV resume has to look good. Now I've seen folks with CVs over 20 pages. Doctors sometimes do it different, but some of these jobs, I say no more than about 4 or 5 pages. Some stuff does not need to be on there. If it's older than about 10 years, I think they said it needs to come off. You need to make sure your stuff is up to date as much as possible. If you have links on your resume, CV, they need to be clickable. They need to go to something. That's important. And so make sure all these things go through. Plus, big final thing I'll say, get your LinkedIn game up, man. Your LinkedIn should be on point. Your LinkedIn is a digital resume for you. They will definitely check your LinkedIn. I have applied for jobs and look, I'm like, oh, I see somebody from that job. Check my LinkedIn. That's cool. And so your LinkedIn has to be on point. Make sure you also check too anything online. I tell people all the time, go to Google, put in your name, click images. Images. You want to see what comes up under your name on images. Because some people, they got some stuff on there. If you had a MySpace page back in the day, it might pop up. You want to get all that stuff deleted because trust and believe, these jobs do deep dives on people. Deep, deep dives. Okay. So those are my biggest tips about getting $100,000 job. I can't tell you stuff that I haven't gone through before or seen before, gone through it, stuff that's worked for me, stuff that's been awesome, So I always want doctors to be able to hit the full stride after they get their doctorate degree. Because like we did yesterday, we talked about professors and professorships, how to do that. Today we're talking about jobs. Tomorrow we're going to talk about branding yourself as a doctor. That's a bread and butter of mine as well. That's really, really important. So we want to make sure that doctors are all together when they get their doctorate degree. Not getting a doctorate degree and they feel lost. Not getting that doctorate degree and they're like, man, what am I going to do? I don't know what to do now that I got my doctorate degree. We want individuals that get their doctorate degree to be at the best level possible of excellence. That's important because what we're starting to see is people are getting their doctorate degrees. They don't have no kind of plan. They just want to be called doctor. They're just good with that. Now they're thinking this doctor degree is going to open up all these doors, and it just doesn't do that. Now they feel let down. Now they feel hurt because they're like, man, I just knew once I became a doctor, earned my doctorate degree, the world was going to open up for me. It doesn't work that way. It just doesn't work that way. You have to be able to put the background, the excellence, the experience, and the passion behind your doctorate degree. That's how it's going to take you to the next level. That's what we want individuals and doctors to know. And so I appreciate the folks for tuning in, checking out. We did some great deep diving when it comes to getting jobs, especially a big money job as a doctor. Very, very important because people want to get paid. You want to get paid for your experience. Plus, it got this lady named Navion or Sally Mae, whatever she call her name. She gonna want her money back, and we need to make sure we have enough money to live good, eat good, and pay her back so she get off our back. Okay? That's a very, very important thing. And so, I appreciate everybody for tuning in today. Like I said, we'll be back tomorrow talking about branding. Branding is very, very important because after you become a doctor, how do you put together all the pieces, the books, the speaking engagements, the writings, all those opportunities, publishing, all those things. How do you put that together as a doctor? That's what we're going to talk about tomorrow. So enjoy your day. Shout out to the national champions, Indiana University. Shout out to them as the trophies are here in town in Indianapolis. I'm going to try to go check them out. And so you make sure you have the best day possible. And until next